The rain had been falling for hours, a slow, relentless drizzle that turned the cracked pavement into dark, glistening rivers. On the far side of the streetlight's weak halo, a shape emerged from the shadows, small, limping, and clutched between its teeth, something pale and fluttering like a folded piece of paper. At first, Sarah thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. She'd been sitting by the front window of her old Victorian home, the one she'd inherited from her father last year, nursing a cup of tea and the kind of thoughts you try to ignore until night. Makes them louder, but then, a streak of movement. A cat, a stray, its fur slick with rain. One paw wrapped in a makeshift bandage that looked torn from someone's shirt, and in its mouth, the folded scrap of paper again, edges soaked, drooping. She stood slowly, her breath catching, because her father had been gone for 7 months, and yet the last time she'd seen handwriting that neat, that precise, it was his. The cat stopped just at the edge of her porch, its eyes, golden and wild, locked onto hers through the rain. There was no meow, no plea for food, just that unblinking stare, as if it knew exactly who she was. Sarah stepped out into the damp night, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and rusting metal from the old gutters. The cat didn't move away. It simply waited, shivering, the paper still clamped in its teeth. "Hey, little one," she whispered, crouching down. The sound of her own voice startled her. It felt too loud in the quiet street. Her fingers brushed the soaked wooden step, and for a second, she swore the rain slowed, like the world was holding its breath. The cat stepped forward. One careful, pained motion at a time, its injured paw barely touched the ground, the bandage sagging. When it was close enough, Sarah reached out. Her hand hovered in the air, giving it a choice. And then, the cat released the paper. It dropped onto her palm, heavier than it should have been with rain. The moment she closed her fingers around it, the cat turned, limping toward the darkened street as if to leave. Panic shot through her chest. "Wait!" she called out, her voice breaking. The cat stopped, looked back. That was when she saw it. Under the weak light of the street lamp, the bandage on its paw wasn't fabric at all. It was a strip of brown packing paper, the same kind her father had used when wrapping up fragile items, and smeared across it was a faint, unmistakable streak of dried blood. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the wet paper in her palm. It wasn't just any note, it was a letter, and at the top, in faded blue ink, was her name, written in her father's hand. But the words beneath, they were smudged from rain, nearly illegible. She caught fragments. "Don't look in. The key is, trust the cat." Her chest tightened. She blinked hard, forcing her eyes to adjust to the fading ink, but the rest was a blur of streaked letters. The sound of the cat's limping steps pulled her back to the present. It was leaving, again, going back into the darkness. Without thinking, Sarah followed. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet for a stormy night. No cars passed, no doors opened, just the echo of her boots on the wet pavement and the soft pat-pat of the cat's. Uneven steps ahead. It didn't seem afraid of her. It didn't run. Instead, it led her through a series of narrow side streets she'd never walked before, deeper into the forgotten part of town where houses sat hollow-eyed and peeling. The air grew colder here, sharper, smelling faintly of mildew and something metallic. At one point, the cat stopped abruptly, looking back at her as if to make sure she was still following. Its gaze lingered, too intelligent, too knowing. Then it limped on. Sarah's heart pounded. Part of her knew this was ridiculous. Chasing. A stray through the rain because of a smeared letter that might not mean anything. And yet, she couldn't shake the way her father's handwriting had looked, or the impossible thought that maybe, somehow, he'd meant for her to find this. The cat finally stopped in front of an abandoned house. It was tall and narrow, with boarded up windows and a porch that sagged under the weight of years. A single flickering light above the door cast a sickly yellow glow over the front steps. The cat sat there, its tail curled neatly around its injured paw, waiting. Sarah hesitated at the bottom of the steps. Rain dripped from the edges of the roof in uneven streams, tapping against the hollow wood. Every instinct told her to leave, to turn back, go, home. Pretend this had never happened. But then, she saw it, carved faintly into the wooden frame beside the door. 3 small letters, JMK, her father's initials. A shiver ran through her. She climbed the creaking steps, the boards groaning under her weight. The cat rose and padded toward the door, then slipped through a gap between the frame and the wood as if it had done this 100 times. Sarah pushed the door gently. It gave way with a low, aching sound. The inside smelled of dust, damp wood, and something faintly sweet, like old paper left in the sun. Shadows pooled in the corners, broken only by thin streams of streetlight filtering through cracks in the boards. The cat stood in the middle of the room watching her. Then, with surprising speed for its injured leg, it darted toward the back of the house. "Wait!" Sarah's voice echoed strangely against the empty walls. She followed, her shoes leaving wet marks on the warped floorboards. They reached a small room at the back, maybe once a study. Books lay scattered on the floor, their pages swollen from water damage. The cat sat beside an old writing desk. Its drawer hung slightly open. Sarah's pulse quickened. She reached for the handle. But the moment her fingers touched it, a floorboard behind her creaked. She froze. The sound wasn't hers. It had been deliberate. Slow, heavy. Her throat tightened as she turned. And there, standing in the dim light of the doorway, was a figure. Tall, motionless, face hidden in shadow. They said nothing. Didn't move. The cat's golden eyes flashed in the dark. And in that tense, silent moment, Sarah realized something. The stranger wasn't looking at her. They were looking at the bandaged paw. You're here listening, and that means more than you know. If you feel safe in these stories, your one subscribe helps me keep this quiet little corner alive. Thank you for being part of this peaceful world. The stranger's head tilted, slow and deliberate, the shadow still hiding their face. That cat doesn't belong to you. The words weren't a threat exactly, but they carried weight, like they knew something she didn't. Sarah swallowed, the rain's faint hiss against the boarded windows filling the silence between them. I didn't say it did, she replied softly, but I think it came here for a reason. The stranger didn't answer right away. Instead, their gaze flicked from Sarah to the cat and lingered on the bandaged paw. Their hand twitched slightly at their side, as if resisting the urge to reach for it. The cat took a single step toward Sarah. That tiny movement broke whatever tension had been holding the room still. The stranger stepped forward, the floor groaning under their weight. Something in Sarah's chest tightened, an old instinct to back away, but she forced her feet to stay planted. Your father, the stranger finally said, voice low, left something behind, and you're not the only one who wants it. Her throat went dry. You knew my father? The stranger's face remained unreadable in the gloom. We met once, a long time ago. He didn't trust easily, but he trusted me enough to leave instructions. Sarah's fingers curled at her sides. She glanced at the desk, at the drawer still slightly open, then back at the stranger. What kind of instructions? A faint smile flickered at the corner of their mouth, gone as soon as it appeared. To follow the cat. When the time came, the words sent a shiver down her spine. It sounded impossible, ridiculous. And yet, here she was, following astray in the rain, clutching a letter in her father's handwriting. The stranger took another slow step, but this time, their eyes locked on hers. Whatever is in that desk, it isn't just paper. Your father, he was hiding something that could hurt people if it ended up in the wrong hands. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Her father had been a quiet man, a historian, a lover of books and antiques. The idea that he'd been keeping something dangerous felt like trying to imagine the sea on fire. The cat let out a soft sound, somewhere between a chirp and a growl, and moved toward the desk. It tapped its paw, the bandaged one, against the drawer. Sarah crouched. Her fingers hesitated on the handle. Part of her feared what she might find, but the bigger part feared never knowing. The drawer slid open with a low scrape. Inside, wrapped in more of that brown packing paper, was a small wooden box no bigger than her palm. It was carved with intricate patterns, the kind her father used to trace absently while thinking. She lifted it out and immediately noticed the faint weight inside, shifting with a muffled clink. The stranger's voice sharpened. "Careful. That's not meant to be opened here." Sarah straightened. "Why not?" "Because," they said, stepping closer now, "someone might be watching." Her pulse quickened. The abandoned house suddenly felt less empty, as though unseen eyes were tracking their every move. The cat darted between her legs and padded to the door, tail flicking impatiently, like it wanted her to follow again. The stranger nodded toward it. It knows where to go. They left the house together, Sarah clutching the box to her chest, the stranger keeping a silent watch behind her. The rain had eased to a fine mist, the night air sharp with the smell of wet leaves. The cat led them down another maze of narrow streets, past sagging fences and yards overrun with weeds. Finally, they came to a wrought iron gate half hidden by ivy. The metal was cold under Sarah's hand as she pushed it open. Beyond was a small, overgrown garden, and in the center stood a stone bench. Her breath caught. She knew this place. Her father used to bring her here as a child, calling it his thinking spot. They'd sit on that bench for hours, talking about nothing and everything. The cat hopped onto the bench, settling with its injured paw tucked neatly beneath it. Its eyes followed her every movement. The stranger stopped just outside the gate. "This is where you open it." Sarah sat on the bench, the damp stone seeping through her coat. Her fingers worked at the paper wrapping the box. It crinkled softly, the sound strangely loud in the still night. When she lifted the lid, her breath caught. Inside were two things: a small brass key, warm to the touch despite the cold air, and a folded sheet of paper, dry and perfectly preserved. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. The handwriting was neat, precise. Her father's. "Sarah, if you are reading this, it means I am gone, and the time has come to trust what I could never explain while I was alive. This key opens a safety deposit box at the old Union Street Bank. Inside is an item I was entrusted with decades ago, something many have sought, but few should ever see. Protect it, and you protect more than you know." Her eyes blurred with tears. She had to blink several times before she could keep reading. "If you found this, then the cat found you. Trust him. He knows the way." She looked up at the animal. Its golden eyes held hers steadily, calm, certain, almost proud. The stranger finally stepped forward, stopping a few feet away. "Your father was right. That key is dangerous in the wrong hands, and now it's yours to guard." Sarah swallowed hard. "Why me?" "Because," they said, "he knew you'd listen." Even when it came in the strangest form, she looked at the cat again, the weight of the key in her hand. The rain had eased completely now, the silence of the night pressing in like a held breath. And then, the cat jumped down from the bench and brushed against her leg. It was the first time it had touched her since she'd seen it. The warmth of its fur against her shin was grounding and oddly comforting. The next day, Sarah went to the bank. The safety deposit box held exactly one item, a small leather-bound journal, worn smooth with age. When she opened it later that night, she found her father's handwriting again, page after page filled with notes, sketches, and maps. All about a single artifact, a relic said to hold the power to influence the mind. He'd written warnings, instructions, and even names of people he trusted, and those he didn't. At the very back, pressed between the last pages, was a photograph. It was of her father, kneeling in a garden, smiling, and beside him was the cat. The same golden eyes, the same paw, bandaged in the exact same way. Her heart stopped. The photograph was dated, 30 years ago. She lowered the picture slowly, her hands trembling. The cat, now curled up on the rug beside her, Cher, opened one eye and watched her quietly. It didn't look away. Something deep inside her shifted then. She didn't understand how it was possible or what it truly meant. But she knew one thing with certainty. Her father had trusted this cat to find her. And it had. That night, before she turned out the light, Sarah whispered into the quiet room, "Thank you for bringing him back to me." The cat's tail flicked once, slow, as if it understood. Then it closed its eyes. And for the first time in months, Sarah felt she wasn't alone. And somewhere, in the silent spaces between her heartbeat and the rain against the window, she swore she heard her father's voice say, "Good girl."